Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Beyond Motherhood. I am so fortunate to have another guest here with us today. The lovely Deanna Wheeler is here, and we are going to be chatting all about how meditation can help you and support you to become more of an active participant in your life and in motherhood, and how it can help to support you and cope with grief and stress. So, welcome, Deanna, and thank you for being here today or tonight for you.
It is tonight for me. I am before you actually in time right now, so that's always kind of fun. I appreciate being here and sharing and talking about this because I feel like it is such a important thing to touch on when we're considering how we navigate stress
Yeah.
in our lives.
Oh, for sure. And I know you're so passionate about speaking around meditation and mindfulness. So I'm really glad that you're able to share more about what you do and your story behind it. So yeah, I guess just to get started, I'd love you to tell our listeners a bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, all the things.
So yes, I am, as we alluded to, I am in Wisconsin in the United States. So hence the major time difference for us. And I've grown up in this area my whole life, moved away for college, came back kind of to the home area to be closer to family and things as we started to have a family and stuff. So I have been teaching meditation for 5 years. And it came into my life at a point in time that I needed hope. That's like the best word I can use to describe what I was looking for at that point. As we kind of mentioned, I was really navigating through grief and the feelings and emotions and all of the stuff that comes with that. And I had never felt anything to that capacity in my life prior. And so I was in a very high state of stress throughout years, actually, before I realized I was in trouble if I didn't make a change. And so that kind of catapulted me into this whole realm of meditation and mindfulness. And it's become such a huge part of my life and what I do and how I show up and encourage and support others. I really want others to learn the power and to be able to take control and just really feel the difference. That's the bottom line, is feeling how much we can shift ourselves out of some of these very challenging things. Um, and it's in my household. It's become part of my family. My husband will find himself pausing without thinking about it because he's feeling some of those things and needs to reset a little bit. We homeschooled for 6 years. Our son is almost 14 at this point in our recording, and he went to virtual school this last fall. And so we've navigated having those changes and having him at home for all of those years, which was absolutely amazing, an experience I wouldn't trade for the world. But it also brought a lot of things versus, sending him to school every day. And I always think about, no matter what we're doing, no matter like the situation we're facing, there will be challenges. They just look different for each of us. So whether you're sending your kid off to school, whether your children are at home, we all have things that we're working through. They look different, but we can use the same tools to overcome them. So
Yeah.
that's a nutshell.
um, and I guess, yeah, with that, it's so interesting you were talking about homeschool because it's something that I've been back and forth with my eldest. My youngest isn't at school yet. But yeah, I mean, it's hard when, you have to work and all the things. So like you said, it's like my challenge is trying to sit with the fact that I can't necessarily at this point in time homeschool him, even though I would love to. So all of our challenges look different, but we all have them at times and we all have to navigate through them. And obviously meditation's a huge part of your life and your family's life now that helps you to navigate and move through some of those more stressful times that we have. So you said that you obviously taught meditation for 5 years. Um, were you practicing it for some time prior to that, or as soon as you started learning, you're like, yes, this is what I want to do with my life. I have such a passion for this and want to share this with others.
Like anyone with anything new, I think I probably spent more time than I can even remember off the top of my head trying it, thinking it wasn't really working, trying it, going, okay, everyone says this will help me, and kind of on and off. And it really was when I was able to make it a routine, ritual part of my day that I started to feel those kind of aha things that everyone said was going to happen. And I like to kind of equate that to like going to the gym or exercising or planning our meals. Like if we do it once, we're like, okay, I did it. And now what?
Yeah.
Like we're waiting for that result or that feeling of accomplishment. And yes, you can feel that after one session, but it's having that consistency in each day that I got to a point where I was looking forward to it. I got to a point where if I was too busy in my mind to sit down and meditate, I missed it. Like I recognized in my body and my mind at the end of the day that I hadn't practiced. And so that was kind of the pivotal point that I thought, other people need this. Other like I'm feeling this, so many benefits. It's changing me in so many ways and it can help. So I would say that sort of playing with it myself for a year, and then spending some time really building that practice before I started teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And like you said, it's a practice. And that the consistency, like with anything, it takes time. And I know for myself, because I do meditate, and there's obviously lots of different ways we can meditate. And for me, it's something I typically will do in the morning. It's part of my sort of morning ritual and morning practice. And it can look as simple as for me just taking 10 conscious breaths before I get out of bed. And generally, when the kids are in bed with me and that's all I've got time to be able to do, like even just something so simple like that. When I've got the capacity and the space to be able to do more, I will do maybe like a longer guided meditation or something like that. So, it can be something we can just start off with so small. But I wonder for you, you mentioned moving through grief and some really high stressful times. What did you notice the biggest shifts that meditation helped you with?
So, in the very beginning, using it to navigate emotional stress was really about trying to decide what I needed to give attention to. So when you're grieving, whether it's, your spouse or a child or a parent, or it can be situations in your life that you're grieving as well. But when you're grieving, you have all these feelings. You're angry, you're upset, you're emotional, you're sad, you have frustrations, you're angry, you're wondering what if, why this, and there's just so many things running through your head when you're really trying to process those situations. And so I found I needed to really kind of compartmentalize and deal with them one at a time. So I'm angry, first of all, identifying that what is causing this anger? Why am I feeling it? What can I do about it? And so meditation became that place for me that quieted a lot of the stuff so that I could say, today I really feel sad. And what does that mean to me? And what does that look like? And how can I work through this? Instead of, am I sad? Am I angry? Am I guilty? Am I, like being able to identify the feelings I was having, the thoughts I was having, so I could start to actually work through them versus everything coming to me at once. And then I would just freeze. I would be like, I'm not dealing with this because it was too much. So it became a pathway at first to really kind of navigate some of these really heavy things that were occurring in my life. And then as I started practicing more and more consistently and being able to have that awareness, then I could take it to some of my actions. Okay, I'm slamming doors and yelling. Why? What is behind that? Is it actually the situation or the conversation that's causing this? Or is it something that's been building in my life that I haven't dealt with? You know, a lot of times when we get to that place of stress where our body starts to take over
Yeah.
with these actions, it's because we've been building that stress over time. It's rarely just one thing happens and we suddenly explode. It's like burying all that stuff inside and eventually it's going to come out. So I was able to take what I was initially thinking and feeling to how am I acting, which of course connects to my relationships to other people, like, you know, my son and my spouse and my siblings and my parents and whoever I happen to be around, even, you know, people at work and things like that. That stuff comes out of us. So I was able to start navigating how I could control that a little bit better. Um, Again, building that awareness. So the end result of meditation can be so many things, but the biggest point is that we're able to build this um, ability to understand without judgment around it, but to understand what's happening in our lives, in our bodies, in our minds, and what we want to do about it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I can definitely relate to a lot of that, especially around when we sort of get to that eruption. I always like to think of it as a volcano, you know, everything's bubbling under the surface. And if we don't tend to it or, you know, acknowledge it and process it and move through it, it just will end up erupting. And, you know, that I think it happens to the best of us, it happens to all of us at some point. But
I
um,
will, yeah, I will be the first to admit that even after years of practice and years of teaching, that if I'm not careful and mindful, like there will be days where that short temper comes back or that knee-jerk reaction comes back. And then I'm like, why did I act like this? Okay. Well, it's because of these things that were happening that I wasn't giving space for.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And, you know, I guess with meditation, I know that you work with lots of different people, but I guess speaking more to mothers, because this podcast speaks mostly to mothers, um, any clients and mothers that you work with, what are some of the things that they come to you that they are seeking support with and seeking some guidance with, particularly around where meditation can kind of come in and help them?
Um, so one of the biggest things that I think a lot of the moms, particularly that I work with, face is they're at a place where they feel like they've been living on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
They have had a moment where they realized that X amount of time has passed and they don't understand how they got there, right? Like that was 5 years ago, or it's already been a year, or whatever that time frame is changes for all of us. But we get to a point where we don't understand, like, how did I end up here? And for a lot of them, they're tired of waking up exhausted. They're going to bed defeated. They're spending all day wishing time away. Like, can it just be bedtime? Because like I'm done, right? And so, with all of that being said, simply put, I think they're looking for more. They're looking for more than where they are right now. And they're looking to take care of themselves again. If we're going to introduce meditation into our lives, generally we're doing it because there's something inside of us that says we need to give ourselves some love. We need to give ourselves some support so that we can help our families, help our children. So wanting to find that joy and find that fulfillment in their days and realizing the importance of navigating and managing the stress of life. Because as we've mentioned a number of times already, stress is inevitable. We can try to reduce it, but we cannot remove it. There are going to be things that trigger us. There are going to be things that we have past experiences that will build different connections to. And so navigating that thing that's going to be there so they don't end up miserable. So they don't, or maybe they already are. They're at that place where I'm like, I don't know what else there is to my life right now. And I don't like where I am. So meditation and mindfulness can help us again gain that awareness of like, what are we doing and why are we doing these things and how do we feel about them? And then what can we change? We can't really change anything without first understanding where we are and how we feel about it. There might be parts of their lives that they absolutely love and they want more of. And then there's parts that they really, really struggle with. So how can we build up those things they want more of and kind of break down some of the, or remove some of the things that they're not really happy with? And so it's that awareness. Because so many of us just go through our days because that's what we're told to do. That's what we're expected to do. That's what we signed up for, right? Like we just do it and we don't put any thought into why. What's the precursor to this behavior or this action or this task in my life? And we find we can often remove a lot of those things that are dragging us down.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, it's kind of like we just go through the motions. It's like rinse, repeat every day, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And there's definitely days where I'm just like, oh my gosh, could this day just end already? Because we're all going to have those days, but it's when it becomes like every day that when you think maybe there's something here that needs to change or that I need help with or support with. Um, and I know you teach mindfulness as well, and I guess that's all about awareness and things. And I think one thing for me, and this might be something that you can elaborate on, and you probably teach as well, but I always loved that phrase, finding the magic in the mundane. And for me, it's really been about, the things I don't really want to be doing or, that we have to do every day, like cooking dinner and thinking, what am I going to cook for dinner and doing the dishes. And for me, it's just been about bringing different things into those moments to make it more joyful. Or like being more aware of my surroundings, like when I'm hanging the washing out on the line, like noticing the clouds in the sky and just the colors around me and just bringing those bits of mindfulness in. I don't do it every time, like let's be honest, but on the days where they do feel long, they do feel really challenging, bringing in those pieces have been really supportive for me as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
That's something that I speak to a lot with clients is like we have tasks and chores that we have to do, right? Like nobody, if you do, I would love to meet you. But nobody really loves doing laundry or washing dishes or, like these aren't things that we look forward to necessarily and get excited about. But they are parts of our days. They are parts of our lives. And so how can we make them enjoyable, like you said? And that's something that we work through with a lot of different things in people's lives. There's a lot of people that want to eat better, or a lot of people that like want to incorporate more movement or exercise into their lives. And we get all these expectations in our head, or we get these ideas from what we see, which is which is fine, but that doesn't always work for us. And so we often set ourselves up for failure because we're looking at what someone else is doing versus what will actually work for us in our lives right now and doing it in a way that we enjoy it. So for me, running 5 miles is not exciting. That sounds horrible. But for somebody who has been running or who is maybe training for a race or something like that, they are excited about it. And so taking some of these things, incorporating movement, what are the things you like to do? I've asked this inside of my Facebook community, and I know you share a lot about this, is, moving in a way that feels good to you and not letting kind of the judgment that we have in our heads about like holding us back. Just let things flow. And so dancing is one that I am really not that great at or enjoy very much. But playing really good music and going for a walk, amazing, right? So building in these things that we either want to be doing more of or those things we have to do, and recognizing what we can do to make them make us feel good. For some people, washing the dishes is therapeutic because they can almost meditate during it. They can feel the water, they can feel the washcloth or the sponge or whatever they're using. And so it is a point of slowing down. For some people, cooking is stressful, and other people find it to be that calming point of their day that they can just turn everything else off and be. You have to pay attention when you're cooking, right? Like, so where can we create little, like you said, kind of those magic moments, or I like to call them mindful moments. Where can we find those in our day and make them more frequent? Because really, the more they show up, the happier we're going to be at the end of the day. So I find that anything can become one of those magic moments if we think a little bit differently about, is this a chore and I really am not looking forward to this, or how can I make this more enjoyable? So doing laundry, listening to a podcast, having an audiobook, having music playing. If you have children that help with that, playing everyone's favorite song and everybody sings and dances while you're folding the laundry. Like, the more we can create that happiness in our lives, the easier it gets.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny. I actually enjoy vacuuming and mopping now because it's kind of, I do it on my day because I have my boys week on, week off with their dad. So on the day that they go to their dad, it's kind of like my reset day. So I reset the house because there's stuff everywhere. The floors are filthy. So it's, yeah, like you said, it's quite therapeutic for me to, put everything back in its place, to tidy up, to vacuum and mop. And I usually put my headphones on and put music on and like kind of have a dance around while I'm vacuuming and mopping. So, it's kind of weird, but it's kind of something I also look forward to as well, because it is such a reset for me. And it's like, okay, now I'm getting into the space where I'm here without my boys for the week. So yeah, it's interesting how you were saying about that, because that for
And
me,
the
yeah,
the idea that, and this has come up from a number of people over time, it's not by any means mine, but the idea of what will future me think now me for. And so sometimes it is creating that reset, cleaning up some of the visual clutter that kind of makes our brains get messier, right? Um, Dealing with the laundry or the dishes, like those things. I'm going to be happy tomorrow if I fold the laundry tonight, because that's one less thing I have to do tomorrow. It's
yeah,
one thing that I know everyone will have clean clothes. The child isn't going to be looking for socks. Like, though all of those things play into doing that chore or that task, but tomorrow me will be happy if I do it tonight, right? Because it sets myself up for a better day ahead. So flipping the switch a little bit like that on some of these things, that if I put this off, how am I going to feel about it?
yeah,
And that's what, like you're maybe not dealing with the floors and cleaning them up when your boys are there because they're boys and they're messy and you're in and you're out and you're enjoying your time with them. So when they do leave, that's the time that you can spend tidying that up and getting things kind of reset so that you feel good now. Okay, I can move forward.
Okay.
Because some of those things will nag at us. Like, you'll think, oh, I didn't do the laundry, I didn't do the dishes. And we
Mm.
spend so much thought processing, thinking about the thing we didn't do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then we criticize ourselves and all the other things.
Yes.
You're like, all this time thinking I probably just could have gone and done the thing.
It becomes a cycle. Yes, it does.
um, and you've kind of touched on it a bit, but you've got obviously your husband and your son. So how have you felt a shift within your family life when you've obviously had meditation in your lives for quite some time now, but what are some of the biggest things that you've noticed within your own family unit that have shifted, and even how you parent now?
So kind of as I mentioned, like I would be lying to you if I said that every day was sunshine and rainbows over here. We still have moments where we're impatient. We still have moments where we're short-tempered. Um, they're just less frequent
Mm.
because we do have the ability to be a little bit more intentional with our thoughts and our words towards each other and our actions. And so it kind of creates a more peaceful dynamic in our home, especially when everything else seems to be going wrong, right? We have those days where everyone in the house seems to have some big challenge and everyone is kind of at their wits end, we're ready to just kind of go off the breaking point there. And that's when that's when having this practice becomes the most important to implement. And so we can do what is within our power to be aware of some of the triggers, some of the stressors that we have in our lives. There are things that happen. And if you're thinking to yourself, yep, every time this person says this thing, or every time I go by this particular place, or every time I hear this song, something is triggered and you start to feel stressed. You start to feel emotions that are hard to navigate through. So if we are aware of them and we can recognize them, we can create a different response. And so in the past, I allowed myself to react. And as I mentioned, yelling and slamming doors and stomping off and just, good riddance. I'm done with this. And now there's the ability to have conversations. There's the ability to calm ourselves to a place where we can talk through some of those things that are happening versus shutting each other out. And having a younger teenager, there I have lots of things ahead of me, let's just say that, and to be able to navigate the hard conversations that come with raising a young adult now and how to help him choose to be thoughtful and kind and intentional. That's it's something that I don't take for granted that I can help him with this because it's something that I feel like if I had known that at his age, if I had known to be kinder to myself, to not let other people's thoughts and um, actions get under my skin, and to be able to turn to someone and ask for support when I was facing some of those things, right? Like that's the power to me, is to say, okay, now someone else gets to learn this and take this with them. So the ability to be more patient, the ability to stay calm when things would have usually stressed me out, um, give myself and my family more grace with things that previously would have triggered certain things in me. And again, that kind of is going when we do something for ourselves, a lot of times it trickles
Yeah.
into the people around us. And so that's something that the people around me are learning, that, oh, I don't have to let this thing get to me. I can say that's an opinion of that person and move on. I don't have to take it and critique myself for something that someone else believes or thinks.
Yeah. 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 And same with me in terms of, I tap into lots of different things, but you've heard me say it before. It's like when we prioritize ourselves and do things for ourselves, the flow on impact that it has into all areas of our lives, our relationships with our kids, our partner, our work, business, whatever it is, it's huge. It's huge. Yet so many of us, and especially mums, find it so hard for various reasons. And a lot of it's because of how society views mothers, but that's a whole nother conversation. But we find it so difficult to put our needs first at times and to take that time out for ourselves, even when it doesn't have to be, you know, going to the gym for an hour or going out to lunch, or it can be things that we can do in the home as well, which is something that has been huge for me as well. All these little things, and they all start to accumulate and have this impact into everything else that we do, and our relationships and all the things. So yeah, I love that you touched on that as well. Um, I'm curious to know, like in your just general day to day life, like where do you fit meditation in, or how would a typical day look for you in terms of? I know it might be different day to day, but do you start the day with meditation? Do you then do it different during the day, or you just do some more mindfulness practices?
So I start with meditation. It really allows me to kind of kick off the day without focusing on all the things I woke up with, right? So a lot of times we wake up in the morning and we already have this to-do list running in our head. And this is something that you've seen me speak about on social media and stuff, is that idea of waking up and dreading the day before we've even gotten out of bed. But as women, particularly, especially as mothers, we are already going, okay, today's Tuesday, XYZ happens. I have to make sure that this is ready and that's ready, and this child needs this for this thing. And then we haven't even gotten to ourselves or the household or the groceries or, you know, and so allowing that space to start the day, like I've written in my planner what I need to know for today. I don't need to wake up with that running through my head and stressing me out. So giving space before I do anything else. And then my morning includes some mindfulness things like journaling and, reviewing my planner, seeing if anything's changed, if any appointments got moved, working with some affirmations. Usually I like to kind of start my day with some positive reinforcement right out of the gate, some positive thinking, something that maybe I need to lean into for that day, whether it's showing up for a certain thing or giving more of myself to a certain thing in my life. And so that's kind of kick off the day. I almost always meditate before bed. Really, unless I'm just wiped, but almost every night. And I find, of course, those are kind of great bookends, but what do you do when you have a roller coaster day and things are up and down? And so I will find lunchtime is a great time to do a little reset. A lot of times we're gearing up for the afternoon, rounding out the workday, whatever that looks like. And we just need a little space to get ourselves ready. And then as I'm working, a lot of times I will be playing, focus music or things that support what I need at that point. So whether it's a guided affirmations meditation around a certain topic that I just feel I need support in. And all of that comes from having that awareness of what do I need right now.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of, I would say, morning, noon, and night is pretty regular for me. Sometimes if I'm out, you can, like you said, 10 deep breaths. If something is triggering you, if you're in traffic and you're like, oh my goodness, or you're waiting in the pickup line for school and your day has just been exhausting, just taking a little space to reset can make the whole difference for what's ahead.
And I love that you also mentioned, and this is something I often ask myself, like, what do I need in this moment? Like, just sitting with that question. And if you don't know, sometimes just sitting with it and just like dropping into your body as best you can. And often the answer will just come up. Maybe it's, I just need to pause for a moment, or, I need to move my body, or whatever it is. But just asking yourself that question can be really powerful as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
we don't do that enough
no,
because we're so caught up in checking off the to-do list, and we're so caught up in all the expectations and going here and being there, and that to stop and go, wait, what do I need? It just does not happen enough. And you're right that when we do stop, a lot of times we figure out this is what will make me feel better right now. And
yeah,
that thing usually isn't that hard to do.
yeah,
But if we don't ever ask ourselves that question, we can't ever take action.
no, exactly. Um, so there's obviously lots of different ways. We've kind of alluded to a few different types of meditation practices and things, but do you have a favorite one that you kind of always come back to, whether it's guided meditations or you like to just mix it up?
I mean, part of it is going with what I feel in the moment and not really, planning what will happen. But I do love guided sessions. It gives me something to focus on. It allows my brain, to my body to kind of follow the breath, to follow the guided imagery, just creating that little break or that pause. And sometimes the guided sessions kind of break those thought patterns we have because we're unable to focus on this nagging thought because we're following whatever is happening in the guided session. So whether that's imagining we're walking on a beach or imagining that we're, swinging in a hammock or whatever that might look like, when you are putting all of your brain power into what does it look like for me to be in that space that this person is describing right now? We can't focus on that nagging thing that's hanging out over here. And so sometimes it's enough to break those repetitive thought cycles that we have. And we can kind of get ourselves unstuck from some things in that way. When I do need to do some processing or kind of allow those thoughts to just float by, a lot of times I'll turn on some music and just do some journaling. I'll turn on some music, do some breathing, check in with how I feel, release some of the tension in my body, and then do some writing so that I can sort through some of the stuff that came up. What came up? Well, is it important? Is it something I need to actually pay attention to? Is this thing that came up true? A lot of times we have these thoughts that really aren't accurate. There's no evidence supporting them. We just keep hanging on to it. And so where do we need to give our energy and attention, and what do we need to let go of? And I'm also a fan of spending a few minutes before meditation to brain dump and to get all of the random things out onto paper. And so again, we often hold, if we're meditating and a thought comes up, and we focus on it and we focus on it, we focus on it because we think it's important and we don't want to forget it. And so now we've lost the purpose behind doing the meditation. And so quieting the noise from the outside world, and emptying all of that out before you start meditating. Because otherwise we hang on to that, do this. Oh, don't forget to do that. Oh, I forgot this. And then that's where our attention goes for the entire time of our practice.
Yeah.
And so just releasing a lot of the stuff that we think we need to remember for some reason. and getting it onto paper. And then after you've done your meditation, you can come back and go, oh, yeah, that's not important. Oh, this thing is important.
No, that's I'm I'm a bit out of practice of doing brain dumps, but yeah, they are definitely helpful. So that's a good little reminder for me to get back into doing it as well. Because yeah,
Yeah,
often
spending
when
a
I
couple
do,
of minutes.
yeah, often when I do meditate, then I'm like thinking about that, and then I'm like, no, got to come back here. Which of course our brain sometimes our thoughts wander off, but and come back. But yeah, it makes a huge difference when you get thoughts on paper. It's out there now, so you can clear up that space in your mind for
Mhm.
sure. Um, so you've given obviously some tips there, just some different ways to meditate. For someone who's you're pretty new to meditation, who wants to get started, um, what would be the best place to start, or a type of meditation, or where could they go to find some different resources?
So the first thing I have to say here is start small. And you've heard us mention that like a few deep breaths, going outside for a minute, hanging up laundry and paying attention to your surroundings. Like those can all be types of meditation and types of mindfulness in your life. And so don't underestimate the power of a few minutes.
Mm,
We get into this mentality of like go big or go home. If I can't do this for 30 minutes every single day, then what's the point? And that couldn't be more wrong. Really, it's about building that consistency. And so if you've never meditated before, or if you were like me in the beginning and you were trying to do it but just really couldn't figure out how it fit, make a commitment to yourself to show up for 5 minutes every day. It could be 1 minute in the morning and 2 minutes at lunch and 2 minutes before bed. Like it does not even have to be 5 minutes all at once,
mm,
but 5 minutes every day. And just remember that something's better than nothing. So if you can do 5 minutes, that is better than not doing anything.
yeah.
Um, just that time, just building that consistency has impacts on the body and the mind so much deeper than we could imagine. There's so much science behind it, but just having that period of time where you're dedicating to yourself is the first step. Once you've given your brain evidence that you can do this, because that's a lot of times why we don't keep up with things, is because we felt like we've failed in the past. Then you can add 10 minutes, or you can do 5 minutes twice a day, or you can make each of your shorter practices a little bit longer. And then you'll start to feel that change in your nervous system and some of the things that I was talking about, how your body responds to stress. And you'll find it easier and easier to do. And there are so many times now that I don't even realize I am pausing and taking those deep breaths without thinking about it. But
Mm,
it's what I've trained my body to do when I start to feel stressed. So we can do this. Everyone can do this. Just don't put too much pressure on yourself because we already have pressure from everything in our lives, and just make that one small commitment of a few minutes. As far as resources, I always suggest starting with Insight Timer. It's an app, and actually both of us have sessions on there that you can access. It's a great tool because you can use it for free and access teachers from all over the globe, obviously. There's teachers from everywhere. And so one, you can experience so many different types of meditation and find what you feel good with. But you can filter it by topic and subject. So if you are needing help with sleep, or you're feeling anxious, or you're, dealing with emotional eating, like you can go as deep as you want to go, according to topic and subject. And you'll probably find something to use. And then you can choose a time. So if you have 5 minutes, you could say, I want something that's, 5 minutes. If you have 20 minutes, you can tell it that, and it will kind of narrow that down. It makes it an easy place to start. Because I find a lot of my clients want to start meditation, but they have a hurdle in even like Googling meditation,
Mm.
because YouTube comes up with 87 different options. And this app, there's, 6 different apps you could download, and there's all these things. And then we freeze because we don't know where to start. So really start small, use an easy tool like Insight Timer. And then if you're finding it so challenging to make this commitment, then I do suggest finding support. So that's why I do what I do, to help women, to help mothers get started with this. And as we've both mentioned, the work that we do for ourselves trickles into our entire family, all our surroundings. Anyone who is around us will start to notice and feel and recognize the shifts we're making, and they may end up wanting to do that for themselves. It's so, so powerful. Just the things that we can overcome it's amazing.
Mm, yeah, for sure. And I can, yeah, definitely recommend Insight Timer. That's typically my go-to in the mornings if I've got a bit of space to be able to do a meditation. And I do love that you can filter it by time, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I've only got like 5 or 10 minutes. Sometimes I've got, a bit longer. So yeah, definitely a great resource. And I will link your teacher details, Insight Timer teacher details in the show notes as well, so everyone can access that easily. But thank you so much, Deanna. I really appreciate your time and all your wisdom. And it's given me some lovely reminders of, oh, yeah, these are some things I need to start bringing back into my own life. So I really appreciate you sharing everything today. And yeah, I really look forward to continuing staying connected. And I'll put all of your details for anyone that wants to connect with Deanna on the socials. I'll put her details in the show notes. So get in touch with her if you want any additional support as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
See you on next week's episode.